Why are there baseball teams named after socks? And birds? And trolley dodgers? Where did all these names come from in Major League Baseball? Let's find out. Play the intro. I'll be going over the name of the team, any previous locations, previous names, if they had any, and other names they could have used. Unlike with my NHL and NBA videos, I decided to put all 30 teams into one video. Let's begin. In February of 1995, Jerry Colangelo held a Name the Team contest. A month later, Arizona was awarded a baseball team. The finalists were Rattlers, Phoenix, Scorpions, and Coyotes. Keep in mind, the Jets had not moved to Arizona when this vote took place, but none of those names were chosen. Instead, another name from the vote, Diamondbacks, was chosen. Originally, Colangelo was going to call them the Phoenix Diamondbacks, but he chose to Arizona to represent the entire state. The Braves didn't start in Atlanta. They weren't even called the Braves when they were created. This franchise began as the Boston Red Stockings. As you will notice with a lot of original teams, they were named after a piece of their uniform or a nickname given by journalists. Back on topic, Boston cycled between Red Stockings, then Red Caps, then Bean Eaters, then Doves, and Rustlers. Then in 1912, new owner James Gaffney bought them and renamed them to the Braves. The meaning behind the name was Gaffney was part of Tammany Hall, and members were called Braves. Tammany Hall was named after Tamaned, a Native American chief of the Lenape people. In 1936, the team was renamed to the Bees, but it only lasted a few seasons before going back to Braves. The name has stuck between moves from Boston to Milwaukee and finally Atlanta. The O's didn't start in Baltimore. They started in Milwaukee. They were known as the Brewers. More on that later. After only one season, the Brewers moved to St. Louis. While St. Louis Brewers could have worked, the team chose the name Browns, which was the former name of their new crosstown foe, the Cardinals. After nearly 50 years of misery and playing second fiddle to the Cardinals, the St. Louis Browns packed up and moved to Baltimore. The team decided to change their name to something familiar. Baltimore chose the name Orioles after the Maryland state bird and former baseball teams that were known as the Baltimore Orioles. The winner of the first World Series didn't win with the name Red Sox. Most stories say the team was known as the Americans, but some say they were known as the Pilgrims. Anyway, in 1908, owner John Taylor chose to rename the team to the Red Sox after the pair of red socks the players wore at home, and it has stuck since. Originally known as the White Stockings, due to the white socks the players wore. After acquiring a bunch of young players, journalists began referring to the team as the Colts. After longtime player Cap Anson was traded away, the team became known as the Orphans. Not that inspiring. In 1903, they got a new nickname, Cubs, after the amount of young players on the team. With the formation of the American League, the St. Paul Saints moved to Chicago. The team was renamed to the White Stockings after the old name of the Cubs. See a pattern here? In 1904, the name was shortened to White Sox. The oldest professional baseball team, known as the Red Stockings, which is what the players wore. The original team disbanded in 1870. In 1876, Cincinnati became a charter member of the newly founded National League. They used the same name as the previous baseball club. In 1890, the name was shortened to Reds. In the 50s, the Reds attached legs to the name. Why? Well, with the country going through the Red Scare, the team thought the name would draw comparisons and affiliation to communism. The name Reds returned in the 60s. Originally a minor league team called the Grand Rapids Rustlers, the team moved to Cleveland in 1900. They flipped between the names Lake Shores, then Bluebirds, then shortened to Blues, then Broncos. And then finally, the Cleveland Naps, after player Nap LaJoy. After LaJoy left in 1914, they needed a new name. The owner asked baseball writers to give them a new name, and they chose Indians. Where did it come from? The original story is that they were named after Louis Sock-Alexis. Louis Sock-Alexis played for a former Cleveland baseball team called the Spiders. Sock Alexis is also said to be the first Native American to play in Major League Baseball. Cleveland claims they honor Sock Alexis with the name Indians. Amid controversy, Cleveland changed the name to Guardians after the Hope Memorial Bridge, which is located near their home stadium, Progressive Field. Now I hear everyone in the comments now, Guardians is dumb, why did they change it? Bring back the Indians, bring back Chief Wahoo. Unlike Washington, who might be bringing back their old name, Cleveland is not going to follow suit. Colorado was the home of several minor league teams and numerous teams that had plans to move to Denver, but all were quashed. Denver was awarded a team in the early 90s. The team wanted a name that could represent the Rocky Mountain region. The name Rockies was chosen. I wasn't going to forget this. The name Colorado Rockies had been used by a certain NHL team between the 70s and early 80s, but that team is in New Jersey now. When the team formed in 1894, they were known as the Detroit Wolverines. But a year later, the team changed the name to the Tigers. The name Tigers came from the Detroit Light Guard. They were nicknamed the Tigers in the American Civil War. Light Guard members were also affiliated with baseball teams over the years. In the National League's first real expansion in the 20th century, Houston was awarded a team. In a Name the Team contest, the name Colt 45s was chosen due to being known as, quote, the gun that won the West. With the move into a brand new indoor stadium, Houston chose to change their name. The name change wasn't because of gun controversy. It was because Colt Firearms Company wanted some of the Colt 45's merchandise revenue. Instead, they chose to change their name to something space-related. It was between the astronauts and the Astros, with the latter winning. Another Name the Team contest was held. A fan from Overland Park, Kansas came up with the winning choice. Royals, after the American Royal Rodeo and Kansas City's livestock industry. Although some have thought the name was a tribute to the famous Negro Leagues team, the Kansas City Monarchs. While the team's logo and brand stick to the royalty theme, original logo concepts had cows as part of the design process. Probably better that they didn't. Founded by the singing cowboy Gene Autry, the team was named the Los Angeles Angels after an old minor league team with the same name and after LA's nickname, the City of Angels. And yes, the team did start in Los Angeles. Only a few years later, the team moved south to Anaheim and changed their location name to the California Angels. After Disney bought the team and an agreement with the city of Anaheim, the Angels changed their location name again, this time to the Anaheim Angels. And that was perfect. They should have stopped there. But when that Artie Moreno guy bought the Angels, one of his first moves was to change to the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim, which makes no sense. In case you forgot or didn't know, Anaheim and Los Angeles are two different counties, and Anaheim does not want to be affiliated with LA. So what's a good idea? Change the name back to Los Angeles Angels, cause that's a good idea. Originally starting in Brooklyn, the team flipped between the names Grays and Atlantics. Then after several players got married, the team was renamed to the Bridegrooms. Only a few years later, the team was renamed to the Superbas after some connection to the Superba. Finally, in 1911, the team was renamed to the Trolley Dodgers after people who dodged electronic trolleys in Brooklyn, then shortened to Dodgers. The team was briefly renamed to the Robins after manager Wilbert Robinson. Then in 1932, they went back to Dodgers. When the team moved to Los Angeles, they kept the name Dodgers. I guess it could be connected to traffic Dodgers in LA. When Blockbuster CEO Wayne Huizenga was awarded a franchise, he wanted his team to be called the Florida Flamingos. Yeah, we almost got pink as a primary color. However, a design director for MLB talked him out of it. Instead, Huizenga ran a Name the Team contest. The winning choice, with over 17,500 submissions, was the Miami Manatees. But Huizenga changed his mind. One of the names he considered was Panthers, but he saved that for his NHL team. The name that eventually won was Marlins. The name Marlins had been used by old minor league teams in Miami. They were founded as the Florida Marlins and were renamed to Miami in 2012. Remember when the St. Louis Browns moved from Milwaukee? That team was called the Brewers. Just like Miami, there was an old team called the Milwaukee Brewers. Only a year into their existence, the Seattle Pilots were bought by Bud Selig and relocated to Milwaukee. There was only one name Selig wanted for his team: Brewers. The name Brewers came from Milwaukee's brewing industry. Seelig wanted the colors to be blue and red, but due to the rush time between the move and opening day, the Brewers were stuck with Pilot's blue and gold. Looking at it today, it would be weird for the Brewers to have red instead of gold. You might not have known this, but the Twins originally started in Kansas City in the 1800s. They were originally known as the Cowboys and then the Blues. Just before the American League formed, they moved to Washington and chose a new name. Senators after you-know-what. The group of old people who make those annoying commercials about how they're better and their opponent is weak and people need to speak English, and you get the idea. But when the team moved to Minnesota in 1960, they couldn't bring Senators with them. Needing a new name that could attract fans from both of the Twin Cities, the team was going to be renamed to the Twin City Twins. Except MLB didn't like it, so they kept the name Twins but went with Minnesota. In 1961, Joan Payson formed a National League Baseball team in New York. Payson operated the team under the corporate name New York Metropolitan Baseball Club, Inc. When it came to choosing a name for this team, Payson kept it simple and chose Mets, which is short for Metropolitans. The Mets colors are a tribute to the Brooklyn Dodgers and New York Giants, with Dodger blue and Giants orange. Did you know the Yankees started in Baltimore? The team was supposed to be placed in New York City, but the Giants kept blocking the expansion, so the team was placed in Baltimore and was known as the Orioles. However, they only lasted 2 seasons. In 1903, the National League and American League attempted some form of merger and coexistence. One request was to put an AL team in New York. The vote passed 15-1, with most likely the Giants voting against. With the move to New York, the team was renamed to the New York Highlanders, while also using Hilltoppers as an alternate nickname. It kinda sorta had something to do with the high ground. The name Highlanders came from their stadium, Hilltop Park, which was built at a high location. When the team moved out of the Hilltop and into the Polo Grounds in 1913, with the Giants, they were renamed to the Yankees. The Yankees name can be traced to old news headlines that referred to New York as the Yankees instead of the Highlanders or Hilltoppers. Yankees came from the nickname that Northerners were known as and the song that was originally used to mock American soldiers in the American Revolution. Good job, Britain. Your attempted ridicule played a role in one of the most recognizable brands in sports. Despite playing in 3 cities and possibly 2 more by the end of the decade, the Athletics never changed their name. The name came from Philadelphia when they were known as the Athletic Club of Philadelphia. When they became a charter member of the American League, the name was switched to Philadelphia Athletics. And the name stuck between Kansas City and Oakland. It will stay when they play in Sacramento. However, the team won't be called the Sacramento Athletics, just the Athletics. And the name Athletics will stay when they move to Las Vegas. If they move to Las Vegas. This is the part where I say the A's should stay in Oakland. John Fisher is making his case for one of the worst owners in sports. Now, the elephant is an interesting story. John McGraw, manager of the New York Giants, dubbed the Athletics as a white elephant. Since then, the elephant has become a staple of the A's branding. At least for now, until John Fisher gets rid of it for something stupid. Sell the team, Fisher. Stay in Oakland. Originally founded as the Quakers in 1883. Only a year later, they were renamed to the Philadelphia Philadelphias. But newspapers weren't fond of that, so they referred to them as the Quakers and a shortened version, the Phillies. In 1944, a contest was held to give them an additional nickname. Blue Jays ended up winning, but nobody took the rebrand serious. Blue Jays was never spelled on a jersey and was abandoned by the end of the decade, but we'll be back to that name. Getting back to Phillies, the name is mainly just Philadelphia Pride. The team was founded as the Pittsburgh Alleghenies after the Allegheny River. In 1890, Pittsburgh signed Lou Bierbauer from Philadelphia. Even though he wasn't on the reserve list, the Athletics claimed that Pittsburgh signing Bierbauer was, quote, piratical. Pirates have stuck since. Now, you might not have known this, but the Pirates didn't change their colors to black and gold until 1948. Before Major League Baseball came to San Diego, the city housed a team in the Pacific Coast League called the San Diego Padres. The name Padres is Spanish for fathers and came from priests from Spanish missionaries. When a Major League team was awarded in 1969, there was no other name that could have been chosen. Here's another interesting thing. The PCL Padres wore blue and red. The Big League Padres wore brown and gold. Originally known as the New York Gothams, no, not because of Batman, The name change came after Jim Murtai, the manager at the time, proclaimed, "My big fellows, my giants," after a win in an 1883 game. However, the name change didn't come until 1885. You could also direct it to the large amount of buildings in New York. With the move to San Francisco, the name still makes sense. When Seattle got another team in 1977 after the Pilots failed, they left it up to the fans to decide a name. Of the 600 options, the Mariners ended up winning. The name Mariners is a reference to Seattle's nautical ties and location near the coast. Would you believe me if I told you the Cardinals started in brown? In their inception, St. Louis started as the Brown Stockings and then the Browns, mainly because of their brown socks. But with new owners came new colors and a new name. Along with dropping brown for red, the team was renamed to the St. Louis Perfectos. That was because the owners had taken the better players from their other team in Cleveland and transferred them to St. Louis. It only lasted a year. The story behind the Cardinals name is a journalist for a St. Louis newspaper overheard a fan refer to the red as a lovely shade of cardinal, referring to the color rather than the bird. And that's been their name since. Could you imagine the Cardinals being called the Browns today? I couldn't. When Tampa was awarded a team, owner Vince Naimoli wanted the team to be called the Stingrays. The only problem was the copyright to the name belonged to a Winter League team in Hawaii called the Maui Stingrays. So instead of paying $35,000 for the name, he went with a different name with rays in the name. Devil rays, which referred to a species of rays. Despite a lot of Christians thinking it had something to do with the devil, it didn't. Naimoli almost considered changing the name to manta rays. Good thing he didn't. In 2007, new owner Stuart Sternberg removed the devil, shortening it to rays. The shortened name was meant to refer to rays of sunshine, although Tampa still uses a ray as an alternate logo on their jersey, so take it with a grain of salt. When the other Senators left DC for Arlington, they needed a new name. With the team located in Arlington instead of directly in Dallas, they weren't in favor of naming the location as Dallas. Texas would be the location name. The team was named the Rangers. The Texas Rangers were part of the Texas Department of Public Safety. It is also what led to the creation of characters like the Lone Ranger and Walker, Texas Ranger. Remember when the Phillies called themselves the Blue Jays? That name would get a second life across the border several decades later. A Name the Team contest was held to give Toronto a name. 30,000 submissions were narrowed down to 10. Blues was one of the finalists, but ownership wasn't in favor, mainly due to the University of Toronto using it for their athletic teams. So they went with something with blue in the name. Blue Jays, after the species of birds. The color blue was also popular with other sports teams in Toronto, like the Maple Leafs and Argonauts. Some also say Labatt's blue had some influence in the name. With the Expos moving from Montreal to Washington, they needed a new name. While Senators had a chance at a third term, they weren't elected. The reason that Senators weren't chosen is because Washington, D.C. doesn't elect Senators to Congress, even though Senators report to D.C. That and the Rangers owned the name even though they hadn't used it in over 30 years at the time. So instead, they went with something that was familiar to some fans. Nationals. One thing I didn't mention in Corrupt Senators was the original Senators also went by the nickname Nationals. There is historical precedent with the name. And unlike both Senators, the Nationals are stable. And that's the origin of every MLB team's name as of August 2024. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed, like, subscribe, and ring the bell. Today's shoutout goes to Marina Castro Lester. I'll see you in the next video.